author of Love Thy Neighbor, A Story of War. It was such a moving piece, and it was very personal. Tell us about your grandfather, your great-grandfather.
My great-grandfather was Felix Warburg, and he at the time, and this is in like the 1920s, 1930s, was one of the wealthiest Jewish philanthropists around, and gave a tremendous amount of money to the resettlement of Jews out of Europe, from Russia, from other European countries, into what was then called Palestine. And then my great-great-grandfather, his father-in-law, was Jacob Schiff, who in the Gilded Age period was probably the largest single Jewish philanthropist resettling Jews out of Europe, out of Russia, into whatever countries would take them, America, but also, importantly, Palestine.
So your family are, I guess, what you would call non-Zionist supporters of Israeli resettlement to the region.
Exactly. Well, they were non-Zionists, which is somewhat of an interesting kind of twist in the history of Zionism and non-Zionism in America, because they were in favor of and paid for the settlement of Jews in what was then called Palestine. But they did not want to have a Jewish state there. They were worried about two things. The whole non-Zionist movement was worried principally about two things. One, that if there were a Jewish state, it would call into question the loyalty of Jews in America. Anti-Semites would point to them and say, well, you have two loyalties. You're not truly American.
Which Trump does frequently.
This is not something that has gone away. And then the second reason was because they feared exactly what would happen, that there would be violence between Jews and Arabs. And that is what happened.
You have covered wars, including in Bosnia. And so you have something to compare it to. Why do you call, because it's very controversial among a lot of people to call what's happening in Gaza genocide. Not everyone likes to hear that. Why do you say that it is genocide?
Well, I was very specific about that. I mean, I said that there is like a lot of evidence indicating this is genocide, and it should be investigated by war crimes prosecutors for possible genocide charges. And indeed, the International Court of Justice is looking into that now. There are other venues in the International Criminal Court that could also do the same. And the reason that I said that is because when I covered the war in Bosnia, I also covered military activity in Iraq and Afghanistan, where I saw a lot of violence. But in Bosnia in particular, I saw people get shot by snipers. I saw civilian homes get bombed from the hills by the Serbs who were besieging Sarajevo. Aid shipments halted, water, electricity cut off. Visit the main hospital in Sarajevo, it would get bombed. I knew people there who were killed and wrote about it at the time. And all of these things that I saw in Sarajevo, in Bosnia, when I was reporting there in the 1990s, which is a long time ago, were very similar to what I've been seeing, what we've all been seeing in Gaza. And in the case of Bosnia, there were war crimes trials, and there are a number of people who are in prison now on atrocities convictions, on genocide.
Slobodan Milosevic.
He died while awaiting trial, but Radovan Karadzic, who was the Bosnian Serb political leader, Ratko Mladic, the Bosnian Serb military leader, they are in prison for the rest of their lives on charges that include genocide. So I saw genocide happen in front of my eyes. Now, what I'm seeing happening in front of my eyes in the way that you are and others are, because foreign reporters aren't allowed into Gaza by Israel, is disturbingly evocative. All of these kinds of incidents that I saw before and that we've seen in other military situations and other genocides we've seen there. Is it genocide? It's a complicated law.
It's a legal question.
It's very difficult. We can talk about it forever, but our opinions don't count. What counts is really what war crimes prosecutors, what war crime judges might decide. And that's what I kind of think needs to happen.
The things that we've heard, you write about the grandmother who's holding her 6-year-old grandson's hand and is shot by a sniper. We've seen on social media Israeli soldiers, IDF soldiers, uploading images of themselves looting, taking things from Palestinian homes. We've seen mosques blown up, schools blown up, the deliberate destruction of Al-Shifa and other hospitals. Is that the kind? And I think the most egregious, or maybe the most egregious, the most shocking thing that people are seeing now is the mass starvation. That's the kind of thing you're saying deserves an investigation.
Yeah, and I mean, the number of children in particular have been killed, more than 13,000 children. This is a number that really isn't disputed by anybody of any reputation. More than 13,000 children have been killed in 6 months in Gaza by Israeli bombs, or Israeli bullets, etc. And when I was covering the war in Bosnia, I mean, this is a 4-year-long war. There was something on the order of 6,000 or 7,000 children killed over the course of 4 years. And this is in 6 months. And it's shocking. It's hard to kill, I think, that many people, that many children, without making mistakes that are not random.
Do you think that because he is the person that is prolonging this and doesn't seem to want to stop it, could Benjamin Netanyahu wind up in a position like Mr. Karadzic, like Mr. Milosevic, and actually charged? In theory, is that something you can even? It boggles the mind to think about it. It's something that you can see happening.
It boggles the mind to think about it, but if you had asked me in 1992, 93, 94, 95, could I ever envision Slobodan Milosevic extradited to a war crimes tribunal in The Hague by his own people?
Yeah.
Same for Radovan Karadzic, same for Ratko Mladic. I would have said, I don't know what you're smoking.
Sure.
And it is kind of unimaginable now. What's less unimaginable is the possibility of actual war crimes charges being filed perhaps against him and IDF generals and others. It's always possible. There are war crimes trials, happening today, happening in with respect to many conflicts. So it's just a question in some respects of the will. Would the United States, which obviously is the biggest supporter of Israel, support these kinds of war crimes trials because the U.S. has a lot of influence over these things. So there's a lot of steps that would have to happen for that to take place. But the only thing that's certain when I've covered all these conflicts in terms of the results is that the results were really surprises.
Yeah, it surprises in a horrible way right now. Peter Moss, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for writing that piece. I think it was brilliant, and I appreciate you. And that is tonight's readout. All